Most people that I speak to about property always are interested in getting on the property ladder. They ask me, Mark, how do I get on the property ladder? I've heard that buy-to-let is really good. And buy-to-let is really good. It's a great way to get on the property ladder. But before you even think about getting on the property ladder with a buy-to-let, please listen to the message that I've got to say to you today. This week, the government have announced that there's going to be 400,000 eviction notices. And they reckon that this year there'll be over 1 million evictions. That's because during the pandemic, people haven't paid the rent. So, let's say I've got a friend who's a young guy, he's 28 years of age, he's got 3 jobs and he's worked really hard. He asked me about 18 months ago, how do I get on the property ladder? I said, get yourself a buy-to-let. So what he's done with these 3 jobs, he's been working day and night, 7 days a week, and he's managed to save himself £35,000. So, to get a buy-to-let mortgage, chances are you're going to need a 50% deposit. So you've got 2 choices. You can either go to the auctions and buy something for 30, 35 grand, or you can get a mortgage for 50% and buy something for 70 grand. So, you go get a mortgage and you buy a house for £70,000. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go fully decorate it, probably put a new kitchen in, put a new bathroom in, get a gas safety certificate. And by the time you finish, with all the time you've put in, the effort and the extra money you've got about 80 grand in it. Then what do? You give it to an estate agent and say, can you rent me this house, please? And they say, yep, we'll get you 450, 500 quid a month for that property. You leave it with them and they advertise it on Rightmove or whatever. Somebody comes along and says, right, I'd like to rent the house. They do a couple of crap references on them, and before you know it, the house is rented. Pay your month's rent, and then this eviction thing speaks for itself, doesn't it? 1 million evictions this year because people aren't paying the rent. So 2-3 months goes by, you don't get paid your rent. You start having to do eviction notices. You end up getting the house back after about 10-12 months. It's knackered, the kitchen's dirty, the bathroom's ruined, the carpets are filthy, it wants redecorating, and you've spent all that money for doing absolutely nothing. And why? Why would you allow that person to rent that property from you? Why would you do that when you don't even know them people? Would you go out and buy yourself a second-hand 80 grand car, something really nice to rent it out to clientele, and then some doylan walks up to you to rent your car and you say, here's the keys, mate, take it, get yourself off? No, you wouldn't do that, would you? So why would you do that with all your hard-earned money into a house? What you've got to do is this. If somebody wants to rent that property from you, make sure you know exactly who's coming to rent that property. And do one of 3 things. First of all, ask for a guarantor. If they can't provide a guarantor, then it's no point renting the property. If they can't get a guarantor, ask their employee to guarantor them. Because if they're a good employee and they've got a good sound job like they say they have, ask if they can get an employment guarantor from you. The next thing you can do, the second thing that you can do after a guarantor, is instead of renting your house out on a short-term let over 6 months or 12 months, what you can do is you can rent it out on Airbnb as a holiday let, because that way you're not covered under exactly the same restrictions. You'd have to go through the Section 21 notice to try and get people out. Basically, if they don't, rent it for a month at a time, and when you take a month's rent, do a new agreement for another month. If they're proper people and they know that they're going to pay the rent, they'll be okay doing that. They can stay as long as they want, or as long as you want them to stay, but they pay you on a month by month basis through a holiday let. That way, you've got completely more rights. The third thing that you can do is a lot of people are renting out to, especially when you're getting the cheap houses, 60, 70,000 pound, or even 30,000 pound houses. People are renting them to people on the on benefits. What used to happen is the benefits used to pay you as a landlord direct. But now with universal credit, what's happening is that the universal credit are paying the people direct. And when that person every month gets his benefits through, the last person that's on their mind is you. Your rent is the last thing on their mind, because they'll go pay for the mobile phone, they'll buy the tobacco, they might go out and buy the drugs, they'll buy the drink or whatever they're going to buy. And you're the last person to get paid, you're the last person they're going to think about. And that's why there's been so many evictions this year, because the government aren't realising that people are crap with money. So if you are going to rent your property out on somebody on benefits, there are certain criteria of people that you can look out for. So for example, people with special needs, people with disabilities, So if you've got a property, you might want to think about putting a specially adapted kitchen in there. And you might want to look at approaching the blind school or places like this for people with special needs or looking for housing to find out what their needs are to adapt that property, because there's one thing you're going to get, and that's you're going to get longevity, so the people will stay there longer, and you're going to get paid guaranteed your rent because the government are going to be paying you direct, and you're probably going to be getting more rent. So please take heed of what I'm saying. It's fantastic to get on the property ladder, and it's great to get a buy-to-let because it's a great start. From getting your first property, I'll be doing different talks later of how to turn that into multiple properties. But for now, if you are thinking about doing it, be very, very careful who you're going to let that property, and take my advice carefully.